seems listless. He seems, dare I say, in decline, cognitively and, dare I say, forgive me, perhaps unfair, physically. And these are just rantings of someone that needs an intervention.
Señores, esto es exactamente lo que Donald Trump más temía. El gobernador de California, Gavin Newsom, acaba de hacerlo otra vez. Dio una conferencia de prensa brutal en la cual, pues, destrozó públicamente a Trump frente al país y frente al mundo entero. Newsom lo llamó literalmente desequilibrado, agotado y en declive, tanto mental como físico, así sin anestesia. Empecemos viendo esto.
Of the president, his latest assertion that he was going to come to San Francisco. On what basis? He didn't even claim there's no pretext anymore. Let's disabuse ourselves that there has to be a pretext with Donald Trump, that there's anything that would justify that. There's no existing protest at a federal building. There's no operation that's being impeded. I guess it's just a training ground for the President of the United States. It is grossly illegal. It's immoral. It's rather delusional. And increasingly, this president appears unhinged, unmoored by reality and facts. Seems listless. He seems, dare I say, in decline, cognitively and, dare I say, forgive me, perhaps unfair, physically. And these are just rantings of someone that needs an intervention, needs some help, needs to be stabilized, dare I say.
Ahora bien, amigos, lo más impresionante de todo esto es que sucedió durante una conferencia en la cual Newsom estaba anunciando una medida histórica. Hablamos de la insulina a $11 en el estado de California. O sea que mientras Trump está destruyendo la salud pública, Newsom la abarata y la hace accesible. Durante este anuncio, el gobernador fue mucho más lejos. Dijo que Donald Trump está fuera de control, que ya ni siquiera intenta disimular sus planes militares para intimidar a los estados demócratas. Escuchen este momento.
As it relates to Donald Trump, he seems less interested in the law. It's clear violation of the law under Posse Comitatus to send the military to do domestic policing in the United States of America, period, full stop. Anyone, even without a law degree, knows that, and most federal judges have adjudicated accordingly, only to see some sand in the gear put at the appellate level as we await ultimately the determination from the United States Supreme Court. But we have been very aggressive and in our efforts in pursuit of the rule of law and justice as it relates to these illegal acts of the president. His latest assertion that he was going to come to San Francisco. On what basis? He didn't even claim there's no pretext anymore. Let's disabuse ourselves that there has to be a pretext with Donald Trump, that there's anything that would justify.
Luego Newsom lanzó una frase que está dando vueltas en todo el país. Le pido a nuestra nación que se manifieste, que proteste pacíficamente. No hay reyes en Estados Unidos. Así de claro. Un mensaje directo contra este autoritarismo de Trump, este intento de gobernar como un monarca, y claro, de la mano con la próxima protesta que se dará en este mismo mes, que es No Kings. Vean esta parte.
No Kings. A declaration of independence against the tyranny, against lawlessness in the context that there was no rule of law. It was the rule of king. And I think increasingly people are waking up to the rule of law in this country, increasingly appearing to be the rule of Don. And I hope it's dawning on people how precious this moment is and what's at stake. And so I hope people put a stake in the ground, take the opportunity and time to participate this weekend, but again, do so peacefully with a deep realization of the consequences and what the founding fathers were all about.
Luego retomó el tema central, que es el derecho a la salud. Explicó por qué es que decidió fabricar insulina estatal a solo $11 la dosis, ¿no? Hablamos de algo que, bueno, ningún presidente, ni siquiera los progresistas, ojo con eso, se atrevieron a hacer.
90% of insulins in this country, 90% share are in the hands of just 3 big companies. And they have been gouging you for years and years and years. They're also gouging Americans by 5 to 10 times what our European counterparts are currently paying. That's fundamentally what we're about, and this announcement is about, is fundamental disruption in this space. In the absence of the kind of leadership at the federal level, though there are some interesting announcements coming from the current administration, but they amount to press releases right now, not fundamental policy yet. In the absence of that, proud of California, our state, leading in this area.
Aquí viene lo más grave de la conferencia, porque Newsom confirmó que el régimen trumpista había planeado lanzar misiles desde buques de guerra hacia Camp Pendleton. Hablamos de una base militar en California, desde el Océano Pacífico. Señores, misiles en suelo estadounidense. Un acto de locura total, que de haberse ejecutado, sin duda habría paralizado la autopista I-5 y puesto en riesgo miles de vidas. Newsom aseguró que se enfrentó a este régimen y logró detener esos planes. Creo que lo vean desafiar directamente a Trump y a sus militares.
Well, we'll see what actually takes place. We were under the understanding they were going to close I-5, up to 80,000 vehicles on Friday, tomorrow, and Saturday. And then they seem to have backed off on that. They were going to move forward with a display, doing something, but they're not clearly sharing that with state officials. It was fundamental that we needed to be part of that if we were going to shut down the freeway and make sure it was done in an appropriate manner. But it appears, as I said, they've backed off. So to be determined what they are proposing to do. We're proud of this country, proud of our military, proud of the 250th anniversary. Anything we can do to celebrate our vets, to celebrate our heroes, I'm all for. Let's just do in coordination and collaboration with state and local leaders. That continues to be a struggle with this administration that is more interested in doing things to people than doing things with people in relationship to these kind of activities.
Pues bueno, luego de la conferencia no se detuvo porque comenzó a responder a ciertas figuras conservadoras. Una de ellas, a Kristi Noem, que quería difundir videos propagandísticos en aeropuertos atacando a los demócratas. Bueno, pues Newsom le envió una carta a todos los aeropuertos en California diciéndoles esto: no reproduzcan esa propaganda ilegal. Recuerden, soy el gobernador de este estado. Y bueno, de paso, les dio a entender que esto viola la ley Hatch, que prohíbe el uso de recursos federales con fines partidistas. Luego Newsom publicó una declaración brutal burlándose de Trump mientras anunciaba oficialmente este programa de insulina. Bueno, dice algo así: yo, Gavin C. Newsom, he hecho lo que Trump nunca pudo hacer. Hice la insulina asequible. Muchos me llaman El Salvador. Desde el 1 de enero, insulina a $11, sin trucos, sin promesas falsas. Trump habla de bajar precios, pero no puede ni mantenerse despierto lo suficiente para hacerlo. Y yo lo logré en 3 meses. También pues aprovechó para criticar cómo Trump ha hundido la economía, que es el efecto Trump, el mercado inmobiliario más inaccesible de la historia, precios de alimentos disparados, millones sin cobertura médica, y bueno, mientras millones de estadounidenses también luchan por pagar la comida, pues Trump envía $40,000 millones a Argentina para rescatar al presidente Javier Milei. Y bueno, Newsom aprovechó también eso para ironizarlo un poco, ¿no? Afirmando lo siguiente: supongo que eso es lo que Trump llama America First. Y luego publicó una imagen de Trump abrazando a Milei con esta frase: nuestro gran presidente y, al parecer, el granjero al cual él rescató, porque mientras los agricultores estadounidenses están quebrando. Porque sí, señores, los agricultores de soya están viviendo lo que ellos llaman la Farmagedón, una crisis provocada por esta guerra comercial absurda de Donald Trump. Y bueno, aprovechó para compartir un clip de CNN donde un granjero dice claramente: esta es una crisis creada por el hombre. Y ese hombre es Donald Trump.
The price of soy dropped under the Trump administration, largely the result of the Trump administration's trade war with China. John's crops, diligently planted, meticulously cared for, are losing their value. Are you angry?
Oh, yeah. Oh, I'm totally mad. There's no reason for it. This is absolute stupidity. This is a man-made crisis caused by Donald Trump, period.
Soybeans are the largest agricultural export from the U.S. Last year, the value was more than $24 billion. China bought 52% of those soybeans. Since May, the country has placed 0 orders.
Sin duda alguna, Gavin Newsom está haciendo lo que yo creo que ningún otro demócrata se ha atrevido a hacer, y es enfrentar directamente a Trump. Y bueno, lo está haciendo de la mejor manera, ayudando a la vida de la gente, mejorándoles la vida. No solo con palabras, sino con acciones concretas. Este tema de la insulina a $11, señores, se van a acordar de esto. Esto es muy, pero muy importante. Ahora bien, amigos, pasemos al siguiente tema. Recordemos lo que sucedió el día de ayer. Y bueno, pues, John Bolton fue acusado por Donald Trump. Alguien que fuera acusado por compartir notas de trabajo. Que ojo, no estoy diciendo que es algo legal, lógico que es algo ilegal, pero aquí viene la contradicción, ¿no? Tenemos esta acusación mientras otro guardó documentos clasificados en un baño dorado en Mar-a-Lago y sigue libre. Eso es exactamente lo que está pasando. Quiero que hablemos de esta acusación contra John Bolton, el ex asesor de seguridad nacional de Donald Trump, un caso, amigos, que está levantando una enorme polémica. No solo por lo que hizo Bolton, que como lo recalqué hace un momento, es algo ilegal, sino por lo que no le pasa a Trump cuando él hace cosas mucho peores. Quiero que veamos este análisis por parte de Nicole Wallace de MSNBC.
This afternoon makes it 3 indictments of Donald Trump's critics in a little over 3 weeks, because today John Bolton, the former national security advisor to Donald Trump, surrendered himself to law enforcement and submitted a not guilty plea to a federal indictment. There are 18 counts in all. They have to do with the retention and transmission of national defense information, specifically diary notes shared by email with 2 people who did not have the proper security clearance. Those notes were regarding his day-to-day activities as national security advisor to Donald Trump. In addition to travel restrictions put into place on John Bolton today, he also faces up to 10 years in custody and a $250,000 fine per count, meaning if convicted, he could possibly spend the rest of his life in prison. His next court date is November 21st. As his case and his defense come into focus, so too do some of the similarities and differences between this particular indictment and prosecution and those of Donald Trump's other political targets. The comparison is pretty simple. This is yet again an example of the Justice Department's unique and formidable singular power relay trained on one of Donald Trump's critics, and yet there are distinctions as well. Consider that where the cases against Jim Comey and Tish James were brought by a political appointee, the indictment against John Bolton is being handled by career prosecutors, at least at this point. In other words, there appears to be more there in the Bolton instance. This is where the nuance comes into play, though, because John Bolton was not exactly the first person in American history to ever see or handle classified information prior to writing a book about his time in government. So he certainly could not have been the first and only person to submit manuscripts as part of his publication review designed to then remove the sensitive passages. In fact, the only reason we're even aware that Bolton shared this information is because while Joe Biden was president, U.S. intelligence covertly penetrated the systems of Iran and discovered that that country, Iran, had hacked one of the email accounts associated with John Bolton. In response to the indictment, Bolton released a statement that reads in part, quote, "When my email was hacked in 2021, the FBI was made fully aware. In 4 years of the prior administration after these reviews, no charges were ever filed. Then came Trump 2. who embodies what Joseph Stalin's head of secret police once said, quote, "You show me the man and I'll show you the crime." These charges are not just about his focus on me or my diaries, but his intensive effort to intimidate his opponents, to ensure that he alone determines what is said about his conduct. Dissent and disagreement are foundational to America's constitutional system and vitally important to our freedom. I look forward to the fight to defend my lawful conduct and to expose his abuse of power. Now, if only John Bolton had shared sensitive information over Signal, using the Signal app, or stored boxes of it in his Mar-a-Lago bathroom, maybe he too would be a free man. But not likely. It's where we start today with some of our favorite reporters and friends. With me at the table, New York Times investigative reporter Mike Schmidt and former Criminal Division Deputy Chief at SDNY, MSNBC legal analyst, host of a new YouTube show, Courtside, Christy Greenberg is back. Also joining us, publisher of The Bulwark, host of the Focus Group podcast, spokesperson for Home of the Brave, Sarah Longwell, is back with us. Sarah, it's great to have you back. I want to start with you and ask you if this is sinking in. I've seen some of the poll numbers. Americans overwhelmingly disapprove of using the justice system to prosecute one's enemies. But what isn't clear to me is how many people are aware of this pattern and practice.
Yeah, look, I would love to say that the American people are incensed about this, but the fact is the number one thing we are hearing from voters in terms of what they are frustrated about really is the economy, prices, and what they see as Donald Trump's failure to focus on those things and instead focus on things like prosecuting his enemies. And so it's not that they're not aware of it. It's just that they're like, Trump is doing this thing where it's about, you know, making himself happy and going after people he doesn't like instead of focusing on the things that I care about. But what they don't do necessarily, unless, I mean, Democrats certainly do, but sort of swing voters, voters who aren't paying as much attention, certainly MAGA voters, they are less interested in sort of the institutional problems of Trump weaponizing the Justice Department, going after his enemies, and they are more focused on just the fact that Donald Trump doesn't seem to be doing anything for them. It's all about him.
Sarah, let me ask you this. We had so many conversations, I think, sharing exasperation that some of these folks sat on the sidelines. John Bolton wasn't one of them. I mean, he jumped into the arena and harshly criticized Donald Trump when all the generals described him as, quote, fascistic to the core and meeting the, quote, technical definition of a dictator. John Bolton, when asked about it, said essentially Trump is too stupid to be a fascist. He didn't, though, go to the next logical step, in my view, and endorse Kamala Harris or Joe Biden before him, as Liz Cheney did. But what do you make of these people without sort of natural constituencies? Tish James has sort of the thunderous, you know, palpable roar of New York behind her, of the Democratic Party behind her. Jim Comey and Bolton are sort of constituentless. They don't have a constituency or really stakeholders. Do you think that makes any difference? Does that change how people see these indictments?
You know, they do live in the sour spot of public opinion to some degree. I do think, however, people, as best as I can tell, seem to feel somewhat differently about James Comey than they do about John Bolton. And I think that the reason is that even though, you know, a lot of people look back at 2016 and they've got very negative feelings about some of the decisions that James Comey made in those moments, I also think that people have sort of softened on him. They sort of feel like, you know, maybe he made bad choices with imperfect information, but what Trump is doing going after him is wrong. Also, I think for people who are paying closer attention, they know that his daughter was one of the people that was fired for trying to just uphold the law. And I think that the way that he has pushed back specifically has sort of galvanized people. I mean, I've done a lot of live shows and a lot of focus groups since the Comey indictment came down. There's a lot of sympathy for Comey. I think people feel slightly differently about John Bolton, in part because there's a strong memory of the fact that specifically around this book, when he was writing it, he chose to write the book instead of testify against Donald Trump when people felt like it would really matter. And so there's some frustration there. I will say one thing that the public is aware of, I think pretty clearly, is that John Bolton is being prosecuted for the very thing that Donald Trump was doing himself, which was keeping all of these documents, sharing them with people, showing them around. when he had all of those documents at Mar-a-Lago. And so I do think people, though, even if they are not directly sympathetic exactly to John Bolton, they do think that it is unfair for John Bolton to be prosecuted for a crime and go to jail for 10 years for something that Donald Trump absolutely did in plain sight, tried to cover up, and then was reelected president subsequently.
The Comey piece from Sarah is interesting, Mike, in that, and I know you've been covering him longer than just about anybody, the attack against Comey extends to his daughter, Maureen Comey, who handled the Epstein case, but also his son-in-law, who was pushed out of that Eastern District of Virginia. And a judge who was appointed by Donald Trump in his first term lamented the departure and the sort of going after, targeting, not just of Comey, but all of the sort of ripple effects of his, that Donald Trump's political war with Jim Comey and the family. Let me read this to you. This is from a Trump-appointed judge. Although I will not comment on why Mr. Edwards, who is Jim Comey's son-in-law, is no longer employed by the Department of Justice, I do want to say how sad I am that I will not have the privilege of him appearing in my courtroom again. I'm even more disheartened to know that the Department of Justice and our nation will be deprived of his obvious talents and integrity going forward, because his work has been truly exceptional in every way, as has been all the lawyers involved in this case. I leave you with a quote from our former great president, Dwight Eisenhower, who saved the world from authoritarianism when he served as the leader of the Allied forces in World War II. Quote, freedom has its life in the hearts, the actions, the spirit of men, and so it must be daily earned and refreshed, else like a flower cut from its life-giving roots, it will wither and die. The whole Virginia story, the war on Comey, the purging of the U.S. attorney picked by Team Trump, Eric Siebert, the pushing out and the punishing of Comey's son-in-law seems to still be reverberating in this district.
Yeah, I think that something we've seen, and you see it particularly in the James case, is that the powers of the Justice Department are being used here in ways that are not about winning cases. So for all of human history, for the sake of this discussion, my understanding was that the Justice Department was about bringing cases that they could win, they could prove beyond a reasonable doubt, and then could survive an appeal. It seems like that doesn't really matter as much to the department, especially if you look at the James case. In a sense, there are different aspects to what's going on here in the ways that the specter of criminality is used. Trump understands better than anyone else what I call the specter of criminality. He used it against Hillary Clinton during the 2016 campaign. He understood it to the core, to his bones, in 2017, in 2018, in 2019, when he had the special counsel's investigation and had the SDNY investigation into Michael Cohen. He certainly learned about it 4 times when he was indicted, when he was out of office and had to sit through a criminal trial. And then he pledged vengeance when he came back. So in terms of what this retribution campaign means, or what this vengeance campaign means and what it is, and, how it's going to play out, it does seem like they care less about winning than they do about using the powers of the department to hurt others. And then that's...
Ok, señores, Bolton fue acusado por compartir por correo electrónico. No lo puedo confirmar, pero esa es la acusación. Compartir algunas notas relacionadas con su trabajo en la Casa Blanca, y que bueno, esas notas habrían contenido información clasificada. En teoría, eso es un delito grave. Pero aquí viene lo interesante, es que el propio Departamento de Justicia nunca vio ese problema en este tema cuando Trump era presidente en su primer mandato. Y ojo que las acusaciones son del primer mandato. Pues todo cambió, ¿no? Cuando Trump volvió al poder en este segundo mandato, de pronto, al parecer los mismos actos que antes no merecían ni una multa, ahora se convierten en una acusación federal. ¿Coincidencia? No lo parece. Lo más irónico es lo que, por ejemplo, Nicolle Wallace mencionó con su frase, ¿no? Es que, pues bueno, si Bolton hubiera escondido esos documentos en una caja de cartón dentro del de un baño en Mar-a-Lago, probablemente pues no estaría enfrentando ningún cargo, ¿no? Y ojo, recalco, no estoy diciendo que Bolton sea un santo. Él mismo fue parte de ese sistema durante años y en su momento él decidió escribir un libro en el cual testifica contra Trump, pues bueno, cuando más importaba, ¿no? Pero bueno, eso no cambia el hecho de que lo que estamos viendo es una vendetta política. Donald Trump utilizando el poder judicial para castigar a quienes se han atrevido o se atreven a desafiarlo, a hablar o incluso distanciarse de él. Como dijo Bolton en su comunicado, esto recuerda la famosa frase atribuida, ¿no?, al jefe de policía secreta de Stalin. Muéstrame al hombre y te mostraré el crimen. Eso es exactamente lo que Trump está haciendo. No se trata de justicia, es intimidación. Lo más preocupante, como mencionaron en el panel, una gran parte de este público estadounidense ni siquiera está prestando atención a ese patrón. Es más, muchos siguen pensando que Trump solo defiende su nombre, pero mientras tanto, está minando el sistema judicial. Está convirtiéndolo en un arma para poder destruir en este momento y en el futuro a sus enemigos políticos. Este caso no es solo sobre John Bolton, no es solo sobre James Comey o Letitia James, que ya son 3 acusados, es el reflejo del tipo de país que Estados Unidos podrá convertirse si es que se normaliza este uso de poder para castigar a la disidencia. Antes de ayer fue James Comey, ayer fue Letitia James, hoy Bolton, mañana, se los aseguro, cualquier funcionario, cualquier periodista, cualquier ciudadano que se atreva a criticar a Donald Trump. Así que la pregunta es, ¿hasta dónde va a llegar este abuso de poder antes de que la gente abra los ojos? Los invito a que me dejen sus opiniones en la caja de comentarios. Muchísimas gracias por acompañarme en este video. Recuerden, como siempre, déjame tu like, comparte el contenido y suscríbete a nuestro canal. Nos vemos en el próximo video. Hasta luego.